On this episode of the Nationwide Real Estate Mastery Podcast, we sit down with RJ Pepino to learn how to wholesale houses to yourself using private funding. Welcome to the Nationwide Real Estate Mastery Podcast, where we provide actionable steps to help you get your first or next real estate deal. Now, during this episode, you're going to discover exactly how to wholesale properties to yourself. Yes, that's right. Wholesale properties to yourself. Now, for those of you who are new, my name is Shaun Young, today's host, and I love all things real estate. Now, before I introduce you to our incredible guest speaker today, I want to make a request that if at any point in this show you like what you're hearing, please give us a thumbs up or subscribe to the show so that you never miss an episode. And be sure to take a look in the description of this episode as we packed it with thousands of dollars in free resources. Now today, we have the privilege to learn from a man whose biggest success prior to his career in real estate was playing Division I tennis as an athlete before moving on to his sales job. But all of that changed, guys, when he read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I would describe our next guest as resourceful. I want to introduce you all to the one, the only, RJ Pepino. RJ, thanks for being a guest on today's show, brother.
Thank you, Shaun. That was quite the introduction, man. I don't think I've ever been introduced like that before.
You deserve it, brother. You deserve it. We've looked into you, and you definitely deserve it, brother. Excited to have you.
I'm excited to be here, and it's good to see that we're part of the same groups of, we're always learning, and that's one of the things I want to talk about is that. But I'm excited group with you, and it's been a little while since we last spoke, so it'll be awesome to catch up with you today.
It is going to be fun, man. And you're right, man. It's great to see you in these groups of higher education, higher learning. You got to always be thinking about how can you improve yourself. So you're right. Now, before we get going, RJ, this is all about you. Can you let our listeners know a little bit about your background and where you come from?
Yeah, so I was an athlete when I went to high school. Just on my younger years, I played a lot of tennis. My family came from the Philippines back here and migrated here in the 70s. And they were always, instilling hard work, get good grades, and going to college and get an education. And it just so happened that in between that, I was able to play tennis and got really good. Did the junior circuit, played high school tennis, got recruited to play Division I tennis up in Youngstown. So this is in Ohio. And literally it changed my life because it got me in front of some opportunities that I wouldn't per se get to in where I was living in Columbus, because I had to change. I had to be a little bit more social. I had to really learn things on my own. It was quite the experience being up there. And it was 3 or 4 hours away from family. And so I learned a lot of networking skills. I learned a lot of my social skills when I was out there. And, throughout my college career in tennis, I was always working and striving to get better and in my craft of tennis. So I'd be reading books, I'd be, looking at tapes. That was a skill I always had. I always wanted to become better at what I was. And in order for me to get better, I would research, I would get coaching, I would, I was never afraid to ask for help. I need help here. What do I got to do? And so that willingness to kind of always be better and improve, that transitioned into the entrepreneur world. My tennis career kind of ended. It was, I didn't have the money to go down and go try and play kind of the junior league of the pros. That's what I do. Well, if you didn't have that skill set right off the bat after college, you have to go and play these smaller tournaments to get into bigger tournaments. Well, that costs money. Like, well, I didn't have any money, so I said, I'm making these decisions, living up there on my own. I'm like, well, I got to make some money, and I was asking around my friends in the area, like what they did for work, and then I kept hearing sales. I'm like, okay, so it was the draw of I can control my own income, it's commission, and I was like, well, I don't know how to sell. I'm thinking, I'm like, well, I didn't know how to sell. So in order to get good at that, I had to get some books. So I got some books on selling, um, and worked on like the actual, like the lessons in the books that I was reading. I think it was like, one of the books was, um, it was a red book. I can't remember it right now offhand, but it was a little red book of selling or something like that. And that was one of the, there's many more books now that I've read on selling. But that was the first book I read. And I got, I started my sales career as a cold caller at a company that's not around anymore, MCI.
I
And
remember
that was
MCI.
more of a summer, remember MCI?
I
So that was
do.
like a summer job and I was in a sales floor that was, and there was like 20 people on the sales floor, and I was literally cold calling people out in Hawaii, California, all over the world to get them to get into long distance, to switch over long distance. And I learned a lot about that job. I learned a lot about gaining people's attention right off the bat, certain pitches that would work to get them to kind of stay on the phone. I also learned that it's a grind, man. Cold calling is a grind, and I did it all summer. And unfortunately, I did make. Unfortunately, that company went under. But fortunately for me, I learned how to sell, but I also made really good money, and that kind of sparked my interest into further pursuing a sales career. Went from MCI, went right into a company called Singular, and I'm looking at my I got an iPhone here at my desk, and I was selling iPhones at Singular,
Mm-hmm.
that turned into AT&T. So my experience in sales back in the day was with cold calling and Singular wireless sales, and it was more of the sales come to you. So I got a little bit of both the outbound and inbound experience, and man, I did that for did that about 4 or 5 years. I lived up there in Youngstown, and did really well in that sales position at Singular. And that transition from Singular to AT&T, there was an opportunity to move up. All I knew was to do really good at the sales and then start moving up into management and get into corporate. That's all I knew. I had no idea about the world of entrepreneurship and being a business owner and what it took. And, you know, um, it really took, this is what it took, Shaun. It took being denied some promotions that I deserved because, when you're really doing good at sales, you're like, well, I want to, get rewarded for that. That's how it was in sports. And so
100%.
I did not know in the corporate ladder, in that environment, like, it doesn't matter. You need to have connections. It just doesn't work like that. Like they're not looking at you from a standpoint of, okay, we did really good in sales. I'm going to move you up in management. There was no path for me there. And it took me getting sick and tired of just like not going anywhere and not being happy with what I was making to look elsewhere. That looking led me to a book that's Rich Dad Poor Dad. That book changed my life. It's changed a lot of other people's lives too.
It's changed a lot of lives,
Um,
brother.
it got me when I read that book, I'm like, whoa, this is what it takes to be, rich and wealthy. Learn about the four quadrants, learn about advantages of being a business owner, advantages of getting into real estate investing. That was the one that like flipped the script for me, and from there I'm like, okay, so what's next? I'm like, I'm going to take action. What was next after that book was going to the 3 day kind of boot camp thing that they have. And I did that. I went there and I was sitting in the stage and I'm like listening to this guy's story. Just the the belief that I had in myself was it was just flowing. I'm like, if this guy can do it, so can I, like that was the thing that I was telling myself and listening to this guy. I'm like, all right, what do I got to do?
Mhm.
Literally, they're like, this is what you got to do. You got to pay us $30,000 in coaching. I'm like, all right, I'm ready to do that.
Mhm.
I'm ready to do that, but I don't got the money. And I'm like, and then they're like, well, we can put it on the credit card. I'm like, I don't even have good credit.
Mhm.
and and so I was just thinking, I'm like, how am I going to make this work? How am I going to make this work? Well, this was back in 2000-ish, six, seven, maybe. And
Mhm.
I'm like, well, I think, I mean, there's got to be stuff around that I can research. Uh,
Mhm.
I went back in the internet, back into the YouTube back then. There were some people teaching it. And I was looking at the videos, but I wasn't really connecting with anybody. I was looking for somebody that I could connect with, and then I found a guy online. Online, this guy had an online course about wholesaling properties, and it was basically this. It was wholesaling properties. You didn't have any good credit. You didn't have to have good credit, and you could do this without owning the properties, flipping properties. I'm like, what? So it was like it was one of those things where like, okay, I like how this guy's talking. I can connect with him. Online guy. I got it started in this course. I didn't have $30,000, but I had $5,000.
Mhm.
So I got his course. And literally, man, like that course taught me how to market. There was a script that I was using. I didn't know I didn't have any talking point. Like in sales, like how I learn in sales is I gotta hear something. I gotta hear a pitch or a presentation, and then I can go back and go do it on my own. So I had the script, and there was all these videos about using the script, but there was no like live calls. So I literally was reading the script in my head. I'm like, okay, and I had it underneath like I also brought a contract with me because that's what they told me. You got to bring a contract with you so you can get the contract. But behind the contracts, I had my scripts. It was like
Nice.
you're in the house. I was in this appointment. I remember I was super nervous. I was in the parking lot, or I'm sorry, the driveway.
Mhm.
The house was next to a like a Dollar General, and I'm sitting there. I'm like, okay, so I'm like formulating what I'm going to tell this motivated seller. I'm sitting there. I'm like, man, I really wish that I could just talk to my coach right now. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
he had everything super automated. So I think I was probably talking to like a virtual assistant of his. Sitting there, I'm like, all right, I'm in here. What do I do next? What do I do?
Mhm.
So I had no idea what I was even talking about to this motivated seller, but super motivated seller. And I went into the house. I had my contract and I had my script. So I was literally in between looking at him explaining the house. I'd also look at my script for notes. And so, I fumbled through that whole experience. And that was my very first contract, getting into contract, which I got it in contract at the wrong price. So I ended up not wholesaling that first deal. I had to back out of that contract. But the lesson that I learned in that is that you don't have to be perfect, you know?
Exactly. That was a major victory, man. Before you move on, I gotta commend you for that, brother. That you took massive action, massive imperfect action, failed your way forward, got a deal under contract. It didn't work, but you kept going. You're still here.
I'm still here. I still fail every single day in some capacity of my life. But guess what, man? I'm not quitting. It's
That is
a
huge. That's huge for our audience to hear that, RJ. A lot of folks think that once you have success in real estate, that it's never any more rainy days. It's always sunshine and and palm trees from there on out. And that's not the reality of our business. There's ups and there's downs. As entrepreneurs, we just try to maintain the ups and lessen the downs, decrease the downs.
uh-huh. Yeah.
Man, that is an awesome story, RJ. Man, thank you for sharing that with us on what brought you into real estate, how'd you get started and going. I mean, that makes a lot of sense, man. Now, before we dive into the exact steps on how you are able to wholesale houses to yourself,
Yeah.
you contribute a lot of your current success to your ability to learn how to get in front of mentors. Why do you think that has played such a huge role in your success?
It has, because it look, man, there's when you look at successful people, um, they leave clues either in their books, they have courses, they've got news articles on them, got videos about them. There's a lot of clues to success. Um, and if you study people, like I study, I like before I go and join a mentorship like we're in right now. I like to kind of study the person. I want to make sure that this is the right kind of person I want to be learning from.
Mhm.
And every single aspect of success in my life has come from some sort of coaching. It really has. Even down to, I got kids, so even down to sleeping, like having my kids sleep and teaching them how to sleep, basically. So I went to sleep school. I got coaching on sleep school for my kids. Like our kids aren't going to sleep. So I went and, invested in that. And now we don't have that problem anymore.
Hmm.
Uh, Back when I was in playing tennis, you have a coach. The coach is showing you, hey, this is how you hit the backhand using an open stance, or here's how you hit, the slice backhand or forehand volley this way, and you practice your reps. You have to be willing to invest in yourself. I've never been afraid of that. I just want to make sure that I'm making the right investment with that, with a person I can connect with and they have the same values. So when looking at the person on the stage and they were trying to sell the coaching, well, I was sold on the actual program, but I didn't have any money, but I also wasn't like, well, I don't know if that's the person I want to be learning from. I think I I can do it. I had that belief in myself, but I didn't really want to learn that particular person. So, going back to your question, like you have to be willing to invest in yourself, because that's how you get better. You got to look for somebody that's probably 5 to 10 years ahead of you, but also has the same values and where you want to be. Not just based on like a reaction that you see online or something from a post. Like probably going to get your attention, but
Mhm.
look at the other posts. See how they are in lives. Get some look at their testimonials and get some references before you go into a mentorship. But you got to get into a mentorship. You That's the only way to cut time
Mhm.
and not have to learn it on your own. And that has really elevated me and cut like 5, 10 years out of learning it on my own. Mentorships, I still have mentorships today. We're in the same mentorship group, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. You do not stop learning. And I think both of us, as being former athletes, understanding that the need for a coach, it's like second nature for folks like us. But it's very crucial, right? You got to keep getting coaching. You've got to work on the things that you don't know.
Yes, you have to. And who to learn from somebody that's been through that journey already, that's going to give you some tips to how not make the mistakes. So I I I'm still looking. I'm in a couple several I'm in a couple several mentorship programs and also some mastermind groups. That's
Mhm.
another thing, Sean. The mastermind groups are powerful as well, just as powerful as getting the one-on-one mentorship, because you're surrounding yourself around people that are in the same journey.
Absolutely.
And then you sharing resources. Like before this, we were talking about, hey, there's some resources that we can share. Let's do that, because that aspect of giving is always going to come back way more.
Every time, every time. And you're right. Those masterminds is like you say, they're groups for folks to share information, to share best practices. There's some that are bigger, some that are smaller, but being part of a network of other like-minded individuals is crucial to get you to where you're trying to go, for sure.
Absolutely. So I will always continue to work on myself. Once I get to another level, there's always another level. There's always another level to get to.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, for our listeners out there, what makes the Nationwide Real Estate Mastery podcast show unique is that every show comes with a detailed, actionable, step by step plan to help you get your first or your next deal. That way, you can pull these steps out of the show, create a blueprint on exactly how to implement what we're covering today. All you guys have to do is visit RJ's link that'll be in the description to get key takeaways and resources that he's provided for us generously today. Now, as many of you guys know, the Real Estate Mastery Podcast allows all of our guest speakers to break down exactly what they do. RJ, can you go ahead and start, give us, peel back all the layers, help us understand, first of all, how do you wholesale, how do you do what you do? How do you wholesale houses to yourself? And what are the steps to make that happen?
Yeah, it all starts with this, the magic and secret sauce to get paid 3 times with our model on buying rental properties. It's all about having the private money to do so, right? You got to have private capital to do so, because the private money allows you to, number one, move quick. You're going to get the motivated seller. You're going to solve their problem, which is they got to close fast, right? In distress, right? So if you go to a bank or somebody else that has to go through and do this appraisal, it just takes too long. So you're solving a problem with the private capital. You have the private capital to do it. Also, you need to have good deals to do it, because you got to have it at 60 cents on the dollar, if better, to be able to pay yourself up front that assignment fee. You're assigning a property to yourself. And then on top of that, you're getting the monthly cash flow from making it a rental. And then on the back end, when you refinance with the bank, you're pulling out cash. So the bank's going to lend 75% of loan to value on your deal. So for example, let me break down some numbers. So, we're in Ohio. A typical deal is going to be anywhere from $100,000 to $250,000. Let's just say we have an amazing rental at $200,000. It's worth $200,000. Now, through the marketing that we do, right? We, going after people behind on taxes. That means that we're going to solve their problem by paying their taxes and get a good discount on a property. Or somebody that has a vacant property and they live all the way in California or Washington or wherever they're at. And then we take that property off their hands. So in this example, the house is in a neighborhood where it's worth $200,000 fixed up. Well, we bought it, right? We made an agreement with that seller to say, hey, we can take it off your hands for cash at $100,000. He's about 25-ish, K in rehab. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use private capital to buy it for 100 and also rehab it for 25. Best thing about our model, though, Shaun, is that based on our after repair value that we're going for at 200K, we know that we need to be all in for this property at 150,000, because that is that 75% of 200,000. That's 150, right? So we're trying to reverse engineer these deals, because this is like a typical rental that we're buying that's probably going to cash flow anywhere from 400 to 500 a month after expenses, taxes, insurance, property management, all that, maintenance and vacancy. And so now we're going to go to our private lender and say, Mr. and Mrs. Private Lender, we have an amazing opportunity here. These are the numbers. What we need to borrow is, $140,000 from you. We do this in a way where they're either going to get monthly payments, if that's what they want, or we do it where we structure the payments in an accrued basis, so they're getting their payments at the end of the project when we refinance. Okay.
How do you find those buyers? Those lenders, those private money lenders, private capital.
Right, are in your network today. More specifically, they're in your network through, it might be your CPA, it might be your attorney, it might be your doctor, your dentist, your friends and family even. But you got to talk to them, and they got to know what you're doing. And instead of saying, I'm just a real estate investor, you tell them, hey, I help investors invest in real estate, right? Or I'm a real estate developer and I help investors get into real estate investing. And this is how I do it. Like, here's a typical deal. Like I have a presentation that we use It's a private money presentation. Be happy to give it to your audience free of charge. They just need to connect with me. But this particular presentation talks about, why investing in real estate is a perfect way to earn double-digit returns on your money, and you're protected by the real estate asset because you have a first position note lien on this house that's already discounted, right? So lenders are everywhere. Back to your question, lenders are everywhere. The perfect thing that I've learned is that if you start documenting what it is that you're doing on your, Facebook, social media channels, you're going to start getting direct messages from random people saying, man, I've been trying to look into getting into this type of investing. And you're not going out there and saying, I'm looking to raise $140,000. You're basically explaining your deal that you have and asking if anybody wants to get involved.
Two totally different approaches.
Right? You're just documenting, like it's like having a case study out there. You're putting a case study out there of a typical deal that you do. This is it. Here are the numbers. I'm buying it for 100. I'm going to rehab it with 25. I'm going to borrow $140,000 from my private lender. And guess what you're going to do? You can pay yourself up front. You're already buying it for 125, and then the remainder of what it is, 15,000, that can go to you. That's your wholesale fee to you. Now you have 140,000 on that note, and that thing is going to rent for, 1,900 a month. It's an amazing deal. After you rent it, you buy it, fix it up, and you rent it out for 1,900 a month. It's covering your note to your private lender. Take that property now and you go to the bank. That bank is going to give you a loan on an asset that's producing cash flow at 75%. So now they're going to give you a loan of 150,000. Guess what you're going to do with that? All right, you're not just going to keep it all. You got to pay back your private lender, and you make a little difference there. Whatever it is, 5, 6K. That's a tax-free check because it's just a loan from the bank. You put that in reserves, keep that right there in your rental reserves, or you can do whatever you want with it. What we do is, we put in our rental reserves to cover any other costs, but sometimes it's not 6,000 that we're putting out. It's like 15, 20,000 because we bought it at a really good discount and used private capital to buy that deal. And now our refinances, Shaun, are 5, 10, 15 properties at once. So we're getting a big chunk of capital at the end of the day. And we're doing this with small multifamily as well. So, private lenders are everywhere. They could even be, for your audience, right, that's listening, a lot of them are wholesaling. They have buyers, right? They have cash buyers. I'm telling you, private lenders are your cash buyers. A buyer is a buyer is a buyer. That's one of my mentors that has always told me.
100%.
Buyer is a buyer. They've got access to capital. And sometimes you don't have all of the deal flow and properties to get that capital working. So they could get it working. You've got the deals. You just need to position your marketing in a way where you're asking if any of your buyers want to be capital partners. That's how I would position it. If they're interested in being a capital partner, give me a call and talk to them about how you can give them, a percentage of the interest on the deal, however you want to work it out. In the beginning, Shaun, I didn't have a lot of my business partner had really no experience with private capital, so we had to give up a little bit of the equity. We took care of our investor, and eventually, it became just a 9% loan, interest only loan, 12-month loan. And we were able to do that cash out refinance in like 4 or 5 months after that. And so you start with one lender, you pay them back, obviously pay them back, you treat them well. And then they're going to tell their friends, you're going to get better terms, you're building a track record. So this model that we created, we kind of engineered this deal, allowed us to stop giving away our best deals and allowed us to start creating that monthly cash flow that you need to survive in real estate. Because wholesaling is a way to get chunks of cash quickly in your business, but also the next month you start at zero again, and you gotta do it again, you know. And so having a wholesale business is great, but then if you can wholesale the ones to yourself,
Mm-hmm.
you can become the biggest buyer in your town.
So, guys, I hope that you understood clearly what RJ was saying about wholesaling to yourself. It's basically the concept of, you want to keep the best opportunities for yourself. But most wholesalers, like RJ is saying, are in the predicament where they say, "Hey, I don't have the capital to take down these deals." He's
Mhm.
just generously said that he's going to provide for our listeners today, how to go about getting that private money. He'll provide that for us. So there shouldn't be anything that's holding you guys back from going out there, having these conversations, letting people know exactly what it is that you do so that you can get this private money to take down these opportunities that are out here all over the place. But you do need the private money a lot of times.
Yeah, that's the key. That's what we specialize in, Shaun. We show you how to structure your deals, how to make sure that you're using the right paperwork, um, and that's allowed us to grow a rental portfolio. That's the key. So and there's I was telling earlier here in the conversation, we have a presentation. You guys can connect with me. Love to give it to your audience. But the main thing too is we have the PowerPoint presentation. So you just take out our names and actually use your company, your deal, that you're looking for funding, or an example deal, and you can literally just start today. And it's going to take some time to get people to like pay attention to you, but if you consistently do it, especially here's a tip, especially if you're in these real estate groups, Shaun. These real estate groups, they're everywhere now. There's private lenders in your real estate group. You can put this case study in your real estate group and see if anybody is interested in learning more about the deals that you have. I'm telling you, you're going to get a lot of messages. The real estate group that we're in, there's a ton of private lenders in there already, and there's also hard money lenders in there too. And that if that's the only thing that you have access to, it's great. You can start building your track record there. But private lending is the best because you have complete control of the deal, and it's 100% financing. That's what we like, and it's a relationship thing. You build long-term relationships with private lenders.
For someone getting started, for a newbie or someone who's maybe even has some experience out there, I kind of hate the word newbie, but when someone who's just getting started or even has a little bit of experience, how do they determine what's a good rate to ask for, or what's a good rate that's being offered to them for that private money?
That's a good question, Shaun. So that it really depends on, like, you're going to be in control over that. So in the beginning, we were asking in our we were part of some groups, so we would ask like what's a typical private lender getting in the groups, and there was a lot of answers there. There's 8, 9, 10, 12%. You really have to see where that investor is and what they're used to. And a perfect question to ask is, what type of returns are you seeing right now in the market? They're going to tell you, well, I was getting 6, and now I've lost some money, and so now there's a baseline of 6. So you just got to make it a little bit more appealing to them. You give them 8, 9, 10. Make sure that you have a program though. Have a minimum. Anymore, like a double-digit return is a lot more appealing than a single-digit return. Right? So you can always start low and go up high, right? Like 10% is typically where we lead off, but we still use 12%. The highest that we have is 15%. And here, let me talk about this. Your private lender we're asking 15%, right? But that private lender is very easy to work with. You can text this private lender. They can wire the money in a day. They're not going to beat you up on, they're being more passive. they're not in your business a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That also speaks volume then that the person that's giving you 7%, but they want all these reports, they want to go into the walk the property with you, like they now also want equity, like there's an easy business. And they only have 100,000 to work with.
Mm-hmm.
So there's give and take. So we still have lenders today that require a little bit more interest, but they're so easy to work with. They're lifelong, relationships. We've been lending, they've been lending on our property since 2012 when we got our first lender. And
Wow.
so there's a give and take in that. So don't get too caught up with the interest rate. Focus more on the relationship and the ease of doing business and also the amount of capital that they have. And there's going to be a win there, so you still have to do your job of getting good enough deals. Okay.
Those are great points. Great points.
Won't work with marginal deals, I'm telling you. So be diligent in numbers. Okay. And let that work for you. So don't be too, like I said, don't be too caught up with the interest rate.
What markets are you guys in? Are you doing this locally or are you doing this nationwide?
So we have a plan to get outside of Ohio, and then in 4 years we want to hit up some other markets that we feel are it's landlord friendly.
Mm-hmm.
There's an affordable housing, so we like to stay right below the house median. There's good house stock, and we have boots on the ground over there. So right now, as we're in other markets of Ohio, but the main market's Columbus. Now we're in Cincinnati, Dayton, and Cleveland. And we're also in some regional vacation spots of Ohio because we like the Airbnb model. So that's where we're at currently. Ohio is a great state to live in, very affordable. Landlord laws are pro landlord, so it's easy to have to deal with some misbehaving tenants, and I like it. Some other markets that I think would also do well are like South Carolina, Florida, some parts of Florida. So, but that's later down the road. But I really like the Midwest, and then obviously down in the southern states that are landlord friendly.
Yep, Southeast. Absolutely. Let me ask you this, RJ. Are you guys concerned if the market takes a dip? Like, what are you guys going to do if that happens?
Well, yes, just like anybody else, we're trying to stay ahead of it, and we're doing it in a way where we're being a little bit more conservative in our underwriting for deals. And we're also opening up the strategy of helping out, tenant buyers that want to become homeowners. So we're bringing up some strategies that we were heavily involved in 2012 and 13. The market wasn't as hot. It was actually, it was coming back up from that crash, back rent to own, and allowing our, some creative strategies in our dispositions of property. So we're bringing back rent to own, we're bringing back land contracts, and we're not doing as many flips. Like we're just not doing that. Like that was, I would say that model of doing a lot of fix and flips, that was 120 days ago. We're being a little bit more selective if we're going to do fix and flip. And we have a model now that we can, we don't have to, because we're the biggest buyer. We want to hold on to as many assets as possible and still be able to dispose of the ones that come through our pipeline. So if we have something that's a realtor referral, we'll get it to our realtors and get a little bit of that commission. If there's one where it makes sense to do some of the new advanced strategies like novation or retail buyer program, we'll do that. Like we're still going into this market as a home buyer that will help solve your problems in any way that we can. If we can't solve it by using cash, we'll solve it by helping you out on the listing, on a creative strategy. We're still going in with that. We're just not going at it from a fix and flip standpoint, where it was kind of like heavily that it was probably doing that 70% and holding 30% in the last, couple of years. We're looking at buying and holding more because I think there's going to be a lot more opportunities for that.
Very, very smart, man. I really appreciate you mentioning to our audience that things have changed, in the last 120 days. You guys got to really, stay abreast to what's happening in your local market, in the industry as a whole, because things are changing. You cannot use the methods that were, in place in January today. They're just not going to give you. They're just not going to give you the same results that you were hoping to have. You have to do things a little differently as the market dictates that. So I really appreciate you pointing that out to our audience, that you guys have even made pivots within your organization as well, based upon today's climate.
Yeah, you have to gotta stay ahead of it. That's why we're in these groups, Shaun.
Absolutely.
Part of. We're talking about the market changes. We're trying to stay ahead of things. You talk about the importance of investing in mentorships. Our mentors that they're looking at the same stuff we're at.
Yep.
We all are working towards helping our community be successful. And that's we don't have a magic ball. What's going on and what's going to happen, right? But I think there's principles here that we've talked about that can help you, be successful in a slow market or a soft market and a hot market like what it was earlier this year. So I think your audience is in the right place. Listen to the right people to help forward what's going on.
Indeed, you're right, brother. You have to stay. You have to stay aware. You have to stay in that mix. Now, guys, as a reminder, at any time in the show, if you like what you're hearing, like right now, go ahead and give us a thumbs up or subscribe to the show so that you never miss an episode. It's your engagement that drives us to keep doing this show for the community for absolutely free. Because, like RJ said, we are trying to help change lives out here. RJ, what do you think your life would be like if you never found real estate and you were still, playing tennis or in your past sales job?
I think I would have found something. I don't know if it would have been real estate, but maybe um, I don't know. I probably could have been doing something consulting wise because I really like helping people.
Okay.
I get a lot of enjoyment doing that, but I could have been the other life that could have been would have been like a sales or well a teaching pro of tennis or maybe like a sales consultant or something like that. But I couldn't imagine being not in control of my own destiny. Let's put it that way.
100%. 100% can agree with you.
I can't. I just can't. I can't. Every day there's this drive that I wake up pretty early in the morning and I have to get up and get after it. It's like a habit. It's ingrained in me. And I think it stems from getting up early and going out and getting to the tennis courts before school. And we were doing that
Mm-hmm.
in all kinds of weather. We were doing that. And so it's that same drive. Like I got to get up. I got to be doing something. If I feel like I'm caged, I'll be frustrated. I'll be frustrated and I can't operate like that. So working, if I had to work for somebody else now, I'd probably get fired because it wouldn't work out.
So you're not going to be a good employee, huh?
It would be a good employee. I just can't. I just can't. Like if I'm going to really put in the time and effort and energy, it's got to be something that I'm in control of, and it's got to be. I got to be working towards my goals and my vision.
Love it. Love it. In control of your own destiny, being a self-determining individual. Absolutely. Well, RJ, we have made it to the part of the show that I like to call the rapid fire session. This is where I'm
Yeah.
going to ask you a question, and the first thing that comes to mind, you shoot.
Okay.
All right, let's go ahead and go. On a scale of 1 to 10, how strict were your parents?
11.
Say 11. Get up early or stay up late?
Get up early.
How many hours of sleep do you get per night?
5.5, 6.
Okay. Favorite or last book read?
$100 million offers by Alex Hermosi.
Nice. If you could be any superhero, who would it be?
I would be this superpower that I would want is mind control.
Mm, okay. Something everyone should do less of.
Drink.
Something everyone should do more of.
Invest in yourself.
NFTs, bang or bust.
Woo! I don't know that much about it, so since I don't know, I'm not going to invest, so I'm going to do bust.
If you had one wish, RJ, what would it be?
I wish I could have more positive influence on my family and friends and everybody around me.
Nice, nice. Man, those are some great answers, RJ. Do you have any final thoughts that you would like to leave with our audience before we wrap things up?
I want to connect with you, so feel free to reach out to me, whatever link Shaun provides. I'd love to connect with you, and I'm super grateful to be able to have this time with you. And I hope my words inspire you to get to your goals. So thank you so much, Shaun. I
Man,
appreciate it.
thank you. This has been a wealth of information for our listeners. I'm sure they have gotten great value out of today's show. Now, RJ, I definitely want to thank you, brother. I'll make sure that I include that link, just like you said, in the description, so that all of our listeners can get a hold of you, should they want to reach out to you for any other further resources as well.
Awesome, Shaun. Thanks for having me.
No problem. And to my listeners, you guys have made it to the end of the show. So give yourselves a big pat on the back, because most people never finish what they start, and you just did. Now, if you got any value out of today's show, be sure to share it with your friends, and on your Facebook page, like the video, subscribe to our channel, and send us topics that you want to learn more about. So until the next episode, you guys can catch me on any one of my social media platforms. I'll see you guys on the other side. Thank you so much, RJ.
Thank you, Shaun.
With this crown on my head, I'm seated on the throne. The top is so alone. Only thing that keeps me going is I know my city love me. I know my city love me. I know my city love me. I know my city love me.